So I'm about to show you something that's going to upset a lot of people in the horse world. So if you want some fun, stay with me. Hi, I'm Tony Lander and I'm from Equisite Way of Life. You know, for years now, we've all heard the same horse world claims, right? About how a horse's legs should move and how the hock angles and the stifle and the pelvis, the angles, and they all should change dramatically when the movement of a horse goes from non-collected to collected, right? So now it's been repeated so often by so many people that nobody questions it anymore. So I decided to actually check. I didn't cherry pick. I pulled videos from all over the internet. They're different breeds and different gaits and different riders, non-collected and collected, and nothing to do with any one horse person or any one horse. I took screenshots at specific moments in the stride where the hind leg is at a stance phase and at the landing phase. And I drew actual angles and put them side by side, image by image, so we can check out what the differences are. And what I found does not match what the horse world has been telling you or me. I'm going to walk you through it right now, angle by angle, right now. And I think once you see this, you won't be able to unsee it. We're looking at, as I said, horses in different gaits, both non-collected and collected, and different breeds and different places that they are. There's a different environments. So what we're going to show is mainly looking at the one hind leg, and we're looking at the hock angle, not the other angles. So we're looking at on one hind leg in a stance phase, that is where they're loaded down to the point that they're in between the braking phase and in between the pushing phase, so the stance phase. And then we're also going to look at the angles in the hock on a hind leg on the landing. That is just when the hoof touches down to begin the braking phase. So let's have a look. So here is the start. Now, for the stance phase, I've used a green line. And basically here, this one is close to vertical. This bottom part of the line is 87.4 degrees on the software I used. And the slopey part here from horizontal is 42.3 degrees. So total angle between the two lines, 129.7. And so you can see I've got it as much as I can to the cannon bone and then up into the above the hock as well in the tibia. So the plan is that this green line, this angle, stays the same through all of these images where we're looking at the horse in different movements, but with the stance phase happening on the one hind leg. Okay, so the plan is that you think about it's 129.7, you can say 130 degrees, it doesn't matter, but that angle of the green line stays the same and I map it to where the leg is. Okay, so we're going to have a look. So here in medium trot, it's basically the same. Yep. And now into an extended canter. Well, it's pretty close to the same here as well on the stance phase. And then in the passage, well, actually, the in the passage, which is a fairly highly collected movement, right? And a lot of people in the horse world say that in collection, the horse's hind end should be down and therefore the angles of the leg, the joints, should be closing. But in fact, the angle of this hock in the passage is actually more open than it was in the different trot phases and in the canter phase. See, because the angle here, this green line relatively should be a little more straight up here and down. So not much different, but the piaffe is different. So in the loaded phase of the leg, I put in a new pink line, a new pink angle showing you it's 122 degrees. So remember this one was 130. And so you can see the difference there. Now, you could be really picky and say, well, how you've got this on the cannon bone here is not exactly right. It should even be open a little bit more. So you could say it could be more like 124 degrees. So again, it is not much different than the other angles for the stance phase. The canter pirouette, again, this angle on the green is actually closed more than what the hock angle is. So this for the canter pirouette, which is claimed to be the highest collection in the Grand Prix, is that this leg in the stance phase is actually not, it's not closed as much as the other ones. So now we have a look at the landing phase, okay? And this I made in blue. So the upper portion is close to 90 degrees from horizontal, and the lower blue line from horizontal down is 51.2. So in total, the whole angle is 141.2 degrees. And of course, this is more open than the 130 of the other support phase angle. And it makes sense because the leg is reaching forward to land, so therefore this angle should be, in theory, more open. So have a look in medium trot. Again, it's very similar. Extended canter, it's hard to see because of the speed that it's moving, the blur here, but I would say the angle here in the real leg is even more open than what this blue line is, but not a lot different. Again, the canter is very close to the same as the others. The passage, again, is very, very close to the same angle on landing. And even the piaffe on landing is very close to the same angle. Yeah, so you could say all the way through, they're all basically very close to the same angles. And here we have the famous shot of Nuno Oliveira on what's renowned as an exemplary passage. And you can see he's in the stance phase at the back here, and it's the same angle as the others were as well. Okay, now we go to some non-collected, and we've got a different breed of horse here. Obviously, this is an Icelandic. And in non-collection, in the walk, in the stance phase, the angle of the leg is actually more open than what it is in the other ones. Kind of makes some sense as well because in the walk, but this one in the trot is basically the same angle. Again, in the canter, very much the same angle. And even in the tote, it's very, very close to the same angle. And even in the flying pace, again, very close to the same angle. So all the way through, they're all very, very similar. And now to the landing phase. Again, the blue on the walk is very similar. In the trot, again, it is very similar to all the other movements. In the canter, okay, in the canter here in the land phase, he's actually got a more closed angle than what the other horses had, which is interesting. And here in the tote, it's very similar, though you could say it's a little more closed because the blue line is back a bit off where the bone would be. And in the flying pace, it is very similar to the other ones as well. So again, all the way through, they are all very, very close to the same. There's not much, only maybe a few degrees in each. It's not much. So now let's have a look at some other horses that we're involved with. And Dantano here is very close again on the stance phase to the green, the 130 degrees. Piaffe, our horse, our quarter horse mare, is also very close to the same on the stance phase. Then in the passage, landing is very similar to the blue again, and the landing in the piaffe again, similar to the blue. Now we have another piaffe horse here, which has more bend in the hock, more closed. So you can see that the green going here should be more here to be in line with everything. So there is more closing on this piaffe step, not on tango. And again, if we look at the piaffe, this is the 120, 122 degrees, 120 degrees, and the pink line. And that is the same as Ludwig doing his school hold. Ludwig is our warm blood gelding. In the school hold, he is the same as what this piaffe is doing on this horse here. Okay, we can go further on landing. The blue line is very, very similar to the other horses. Again, landing, blue line is similar. So overall, in this presentation, in the images that I took, in the screenshots that I took, in the angles that I put on there and kept the angles of those colored lines the same all the way through on all the horses, there was very, very little variance, whether they were in non-collected or collected, and whether they were in walk or trot or canter. It was also, and whether they were in passage, piaffe, whether they were in canter pirouette, there's very little change in anything along the way. The angles are very similar if they're at the stance phase, and they're very similar if they're all at the braking or the landing phase. So just an interesting observation from my point of view. I'm not saying anyone is wrong or right, but this is what I found as I went through these videos and compared the angles from the images from the screenshots. And of course, this is not scientific based. It's not scientific based from the point of view of having actual horses moving and checking it with exact accuracy. but I'll take that. I can take that criticism that it's is not exact accuracy and it's not exactly where the bones are, but it is the plan. The idea is that it's the same inaccuracy all the way through, and it's showing that it's very similar all the way through. And so this for me is a very important point. So there you have it. In summary, what I did was I looked at videos, I stopped it, took a screenshot at different points of the phase of the step, whether it's walk, trot, canter, or piaffe, passage, or canter pirouette, and then took those screenshots, whether they were in stance phase or in landing phase. And then I put it on the software, put the lines on and checked the angle, and then kept those angles all the way through. So I'm the first to admit this is not scientifically done. It is not done via motion cameras and exact X-rays to see where the bones are and to see what the joint angle actually is. But the inaccuracies that I have are exactly the same on each image. So seeing that they're very, very similar, there's not much difference. Even in the really sat down piaffe, 122 degrees compared to 129.7 is not a huge difference. It's a difference, but it's not a huge difference. And then in the collection was hardly any difference between the collection and hardly any difference between the non-collection and the collection. This is quite amazing when I did this that I was a bit blown away that that's the case. But the thing is, it's what I'm observing, it's what I'm feeling, it's what I'm seeing in the videos, and it does not match what I hear is said in the horse world, where they talk about all collection has the hind end lower and all the joints are closing and everything else. It's just not happening in reality. So I'm happy if somebody wants to go and do this scientifically and get it with videos and slow motion cameras and proper angles and everything else. I'd love it that they do it, but they have to do it then with different horses and different gaits and collected and non-collected to really check it. But I personally am not believing what the horse world is saying about collection and about the hind leg and how it actually changes so much because it does not change so much. And so I'm going to do further videos like this. And if you enjoy these, hey, subscribe and also put comments down below. I'd love to hear your point of view. And again, this is my point of view and it may not sit with you in the right way. That's fine. No problem. We can have discussions about it, but it's what's on the image. It's what's on the videos, what's on the image, it's what's on the angles. So that's my point of view. Okay. Catch you soon.